Marcus Chen had never imagined that a simple delivery job would change his entire life. The 28-year-old courier from Portland had been struggling to make ends meet for months. His small delivery company barely kept him afloat, and most days he wondered if he should just give up and find a regular job like his parents always suggested. The package he carried that Tuesday morning seemed ordinary enough. A sealed envelope, no bigger than a laptop, addressed to someone called the Sovereign at an address he'd never heard of before. The payment was unusually generous, though, $5,000 for what should have been a routine delivery. Marcus had learned not to ask too many questions when clients paid well. The address led him to an imposing building in the heart of downtown. It looked like an old mansion that had been converted into offices, with stone walls and tall windows that reflected the morning sun. Security cameras watched every angle, and Marcus noticed at least 3 guards stationed around the property, all wearing dark suits and earpieces. As he approached the main entrance, a woman in her 30s stepped out to meet him. She had short black hair and wore a crisp business suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Her eyes were sharp and calculating, missing nothing as they swept over him from head to toe. "You must be the courier," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent he couldn't place. "I'm Sarah, personal assistant to the Sovereign." "You're exactly on time." Marcus nodded and reached for the package. "Just need his signature and I'll be on my way." Sarah shook her head. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. The Sovereign has requested to meet you personally. She wants to verify the delivery herself." Something cold settled in Marcus's stomach. In 5 years of courier work, he'd never had a client insist on meeting him face to face. Most preferred to remain anonymous, especially when they paid cash up front like this one had. "Is there a problem?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Not at all," Sarah replied, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "The Sovereign is simply very particular about security. Please, follow me." Marcus hesitated. Every instinct told him to hand over the package, get his signature, and leave. But the $5,000 was already in his account, and he needed that money. His rent was due in 3 days, and his delivery truck needed new tires he couldn't afford. The interior of the building was even more impressive than the outside. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and original paintings hung on walls covered in rich fabric. It felt more like a palace than an office building. Their footsteps echoed as Sarah led him down a long corridor lined with doors that remained firmly closed. "The Sovereign runs several businesses from here," Sarah explained as they walked. "Import and export, mostly. She deals with clients from all over the world." They passed more security guards, each one nodding respectfully to Sarah while studying Marcus with professional interest. He was beginning to feel like a mouse in a maze, being guided towards some unknown destination. "Here we are," Sarah announced, stopping before a set of double doors made from what looked like solid oak. Intricate carvings covered the wood, depicting scenes of mountains, forests, and creatures that might have been dragons. "The Sovereign will see you now." The doors opened silently, revealing a room that took Marcus's breath away. The ceiling stretched up at least 20 feet, supported by carved pillars. Tapestries covered the walls, showing battles and ceremonies from what looked like medieval times. At the far end of the room sat a chair that could only be described as a throne, high-backed, made from dark wood and covered in gold details. And, sitting in that throne was the most striking woman Marcus had ever seen. She appeared to be in her 40s, with long silver hair that caught the light from the windows behind her. Her skin was pale but flawless, and her eyes were a green so deep they seemed to glow. She wore a dress that looked like it belonged in a historical drama, deep purple with gold embroidery that probably took months to complete. But it wasn't her appearance that made Marcus stop in his tracks. It was the way she sat, the way she held herself. Everything about her radiated power and authority. When she looked at him, he felt like she could see right through him, could read every thought in his head. "Approach," she said, and her voice filled the entire room despite being barely above a whisper. Marcus's legs moved without his permission, carrying him across the polished floor until he stood about 10 feet from the throne. The package felt heavy in his hands, and he realized he was holding his breath. "You are Marcus Chen," she said. It wasn't a question. 28 years old, born in Seattle, moved to Portland 5 years ago to start your delivery business. Parents are both teachers. No siblings. No romantic relationships currently. Marcus's mouth went dry. How do you know all that? A slight smile crossed her lips. I make it my business to know about anyone who enters my domain. You carry something that belongs to me. Just a package, Marcus managed to say. I don't know what's in it. Of course you don't. But, you will. She gestured with one elegant hand. Come closer. Against his better judgment, Marcus took several more steps forward. Now he was close enough to see that her eyes weren't just green, they had flecks of gold in them, like gems with fire trapped inside. Do you know what courage is, Marcus Chen? She asked. The question caught him off guard. I guess, doing something even when you're scared? A simplistic but adequate definition. And, are you frightened now? Marcus considered lying, but something about her gaze made deception impossible. Yes. Good. Fear keeps us alive. But, you're still here, still standing before me despite that fear. That shows character. She leaned forward slightly. Tell me, what do you know about dragons? Dragons? Marcus blinked. They're mythical creatures. Like in fairy tales and movies. Mythical, she repeated, and there was something like amusement in her voice. Yes, I suppose that's what most people believe. What if I told you that dragons were real, but they learned long ago to hide among humans? Marcus felt like the conversation was spinning out of control. I'd say that sounds impossible. Many impossible things become possible when you have the right perspective. She stood from the throne, and Marcus realized she was taller than he'd expected, probably close to 6 feet. What if I told you that dragons don't just hoard gold, but hoard knowledge, power, influence? What if I told you that some of the most successful businesses in the world are run by dragons who learn to adapt to the modern age? I'd wonder why you're telling me this, Marcus said honestly. Because, Marcus Chen, you have unknowingly walked into the throne room of one of the most powerful dragons in North America. And, that package you carry contains something that could change the balance of power in ways you cannot imagine. The room seemed to grow colder. Marcus looked down at the envelope in his hands, then, back up at the woman who claimed to be a dragon. You're not serious. I am always serious. She stepped down from the raised platform where the throne sat, moving with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. The question now is what to do with you. You have seen too much to simply walk away. You know too much. Marcus's heart started pounding. I don't know anything. I'm just a delivery guy. I won't tell anyone about this place. Oh, but, you will tell someone. Humans always do. You'll go home tonight and call a friend, or write in a journal, or post something cryptic on social media. It's in your nature to share experiences, especially extraordinary ones. She was right, and they both knew it. Marcus would never be able to keep this to himself, not completely. The whole situation was too bizarre, too overwhelming. So what happens now? He asked. Now, you have a choice to make. You can hand me that package, accept payment for a job well done, and walk out of here. But, if you do, you'll never remember any of this. I have ways of making people forget things they shouldn't have seen. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. And the other option? The other option is much more dangerous, but potentially much more rewarding. You can choose to stay, to learn, to become part of something larger than yourself. But, once you make that choice, there's no going back. Your old life will be over. I don't understand. You don't need to understand yet. You only need to choose. She extended her hand toward him. Give me the package and walk away with your memories intact but your life unchanged. Or keep holding it and step into a world you never knew existed. Marcus stared at the package in his hands. It felt warm now, almost alive. He thought about his small apartment, his struggling business, his parents who worried about him constantly. He thought about the stack of unpaid bills on his kitchen counter and the loneliness that followed him everywhere. Then, he looked at this mysterious woman who claimed to be a dragon, standing in a room that belonged in a castle, offering him a choice between safety and adventure. "If I stay," he said slowly, "what would happen to me?" "That would depend entirely on you. On what you're capable of, what you're willing to learn, how far you're willing to go. But, I can promise you this, you would never be ordinary again." Marcus took a deep breath. The smart thing to do was hand over the package and leave. Go back to his normal life, his predictable problems, his safe mediocrity. Instead, he clutched the package tighter. "I want to know what's in here first." Her smile widened, showing teeth that seemed sharper than they should be. "Excellent. Then, welcome, Marcus-chan, to the court of the Dragon Queen." The last thing Marcus saw before everything changed was her eyes beginning to glow with an inner fire that definitely wasn't human. He realized that his life as he knew it was over, and something much stranger and more dangerous was about to begin. Outside, the city continued its daily routine, completely unaware that one ordinary courier had just stepped across the threshold into a hidden world of ancient powers and modern mysteries. The package in his hands grew warmer still, and, somewhere deep inside it, something that had been waiting for a very long time finally began to wake up. The package burst into flames in Marcus's hands, but, strangely, the fire didn't burn him. Instead, it felt warm and comforting, like sitting by a fireplace on a winter evening. The flames consumed the outer envelope completely, revealing a small crystal orb that glowed with the same inner light he'd seen in the Dragon Queen's eyes. "What is this?" Marcus whispered, staring at the orb that now pulsed gently in his palms. "Something that was stolen from me over 200 years ago," the Dragon Queen replied, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and ancient anger. "A piece of my essence, captured and hidden by those who thought they could use dragon magic for their own purposes." The throne room around them began to change. The walls shimmered and shifted, revealing their true form. What Marcus had thought were tapestries showing medieval scenes were actually windows looking out onto landscapes that couldn't exist in the modern world. Through one, he saw a forest of trees so tall they disappeared into clouds. Through another, he glimpsed a city built into the side of a mountain, with bridges spanning impossible distances between peaks. "This isn't really Portland, is it?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Oh, it is and it isn't. This building exists in your Portland, but it also exists in other places, other dimensions. Dragons learned long ago how to fold space, how to create doorways between worlds. It's how we survived when humans began to multiply and spread across the earth." She moved closer to him, and now Marcus could see that her appearance was shifting too. Her businesslike demeanor was melting away, replaced by something far more ancient and powerful. Her silver hair seemed to move with its own wind, and her green eyes held depths that suggested vast intelligence and experience. "My name is Seraphina Drakeborn, though I haven't used that name in over a century. In your world, I go by Sarah Thompson, CEO of Thompson International. You might have heard of my company." Marcus had indeed heard of Thompson International. It was one of the largest import-export businesses in the Pacific Northwest, with connections to companies all over the world. He'd even delivered packages to their subsidiary offices before, though never to this building. "All this time, you've been hiding in plain sight," he said. "The best place to hide a tree is in a forest. The best place to hide a dragon is among humans who have forgotten that dragons exist." She gestured toward the crystal orb. "But that contains part of my power, part of my memory. For 2 centuries, I've been incomplete, diminished. Someone in your world has been using my stolen essence to fuel their own magic." "Someone else knows about dragons?" "Oh yes. There are humans who know, who have always known. Some work with us, some hunt us, some try to use us. The person who stole this from me was a sorcerer named Edmund Blackwood. He used my essence to extend his own life, to power spells that should have been beyond his ability." Marcus felt the orb pulse stronger in his hands. "Is he still alive?" "He died 3 weeks ago. Old age, finally. But, before he died, he apparently decided to return what he'd stolen. That package was sent by his heir, someone who wants to make amends for their ancestors' crimes. Why didn't they just mail it directly? Why hire a courier? Serafina laughed, and the sound was like wind chimes made of silver. Because dragon magic can't be handled by just anyone. It would have destroyed a normal postal worker, or anyone else who tried to carry it for long periods. But, you're different. Different how? You carried that orb for over an hour without any protective spells, without any training, and you're still standing here talking to me. Most humans would have been driven mad by the exposure to raw dragon essence. Marcus looked down at the orb again. It was beautiful, like a star captured in crystal, but he didn't feel any different than before. I don't understand. Neither do I, completely. But I have a theory. Serafina began walking around him in a slow circle, studying him from every angle. Tell me, Marcus, have you ever had dreams of flying? Of breathing fire? Of hoarding treasure? No. But, even as he said it, Marcus remembered strange dreams from his childhood. Dreams of soaring over mountains, of caves filled with gold, of transforming into something powerful and magnificent. He dismissed them as the typical fantasies of a kid who read too many fantasy books. What about your family history? Any unusual stories, any relatives who disappeared mysteriously or were said to have strange abilities? Marcus thought about it. His family was pretty ordinary, mostly teachers and accountants and shop owners. But there was his great-grandmother on his mother's side, the one everyone called Crazy Grandma Rose. She used to tell stories about dragons and magic that the adults dismissed as senile ramblings. My great-grandmother used to say she could talk to dragons, he said slowly. But she had dementia. Everyone said she was just confused. Serafina stopped circling and fixed him with her intense gaze. Or maybe she was the only one in your family who remembered the truth. Marcus Chen, I believe you have dragon blood in your veins. Not much, probably diluted over several generations, but enough to let you handle dragon magic without being destroyed by it. The idea was so absurd that Marcus almost laughed. That's impossible. I'm completely ordinary. I can barely keep my delivery business running. Can you? Serafina raised an eyebrow. Because according to my research, your business has survived 3 major recessions, 2 competitor buyout attempts, and a citywide courier strike that destroyed most of your competition. You've never had a single package stolen, never had a major accident, never failed to complete a delivery. For someone who claims to be ordinary, you have remarkably good luck. Marcus had never thought about it that way, but she was right. His business had survived things that destroyed other courier companies. He'd always attributed it to hard work and determination, but maybe there was more to it. Even if that's true, he said, what does it mean? It means you have a choice to make, and this time it's an informed choice. You can take your payment, walk out that door, and go back to your old life. I'll keep the orb, regain my full power, and you'll never see me again. Or you can stay and let me teach you what you really are. Learn to use the abilities you've been suppressing your whole life. Become part of a world that most humans never even dream exists. Marcus felt overwhelmed. Yesterday he'd been worried about paying rent and buying new tires for his truck. Now he was standing in a magical throne room being told he might be part dragon. If I stay, what would I have to do? Learn, first. About dragon history, about the hidden world that exists alongside the human one, about the powers that run through your blood. Then, if you prove capable, you would work for me. Doing what? The same thing you've always done, in a way. Delivering packages, carrying messages, transporting items that need to go from one place to another. But, instead of delivering packages around Portland, you'd be traveling between dimensions, carrying communications between dragon courts, sometimes moving objects of immense magical power. It sounded both terrifying and thrilling. Marcus thought about the stack of bills on his counter, about the loneliness of his small apartment, about the way he felt like he was sleepwalking through life. What if I'm not actually part dragon? What if you're wrong about me? Then, the training will kill you, Serafina said matter-of-factly. Dragon magic is not forgiving to those who can't handle it. But, I don't think I'm wrong. The orb recognizes you, resonates with you. I can see it in the way it glows brighter when you hold it closer to your chest. Marcus looked down and realized she was right. The orb was definitely glowing brighter, and he could feel warmth spreading from it through his entire body. You said this was part of your essence. What happens when you take it back? I become whole again. My full power returns. I remember things that have been hidden from me for 2 centuries. I regain my ability to take my true form. Your true form? Seraphina smiled, and, for just a moment, Marcus thought he saw scales shimmer along her jawline. I am a dragon, Marcus. This human appearance is just a disguise I wear to move through your world safely. My true form is somewhat larger and considerably more impressive. How much larger? Large enough to need a much bigger room. Dragons aren't known for being subtle. She gestured toward the crystal orb. But, to reclaim what was stolen, I need you to give it to me willingly. Dragon magic can't be taken by force, it has to be freely given. Marcus realized this was the moment of truth. Everything that happened next would depend on his decision right now. He could play it safe, hand over the orb, take his money, and go back to his normal life. Or he could take the biggest risk of his life and step into the unknown. He thought about his great-grandmother, Crazy Grandma Rose, who used to whisper stories about dragons when the adults weren't listening. She used to tell him he was special, that he had magic in his blood, that someday he would do great things. Everyone else said she was losing her mind, but what if she'd been the only one telling the truth? If I give this to you and agree to stay, Marcus said, I want your promise that you'll teach me everything. No secrets, no holding back. If I'm going to risk my life for this, I want to know what I'm really getting into. Agreed. Though I warn you, some knowledge is dangerous. Once you know certain things, you can never unknow them. I understand. Marcus took a deep breath, then held out the crystal orb toward Seraphina. I want to know who I really am. She reached out and took the orb from his hands. The moment her fingers closed around it, the entire room exploded with light and power. The crystal dissolved into pure energy that flowed into her body like liquid starlight. Her human disguise began to fall away completely, revealing something far more magnificent and terrifying than Marcus had imagined possible. When the light finally faded, Marcus found himself face to face with a dragon. Seraphina in her true form was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. She stood nearly 12 feet tall, with scales that shifted color from deep emerald to silver depending on how the light hit them. Her wings, folded against her back, span at least 30 feet when fully extended. Her eyes still held that same intelligence Marcus had seen in her human form, but now they blazed with ancient fire and wisdom accumulated over centuries. This is who I truly am, her voice resonated through the expanded throne room, which had somehow grown to accommodate her real size. Seraphina Drakeborn, last of the Northern Mountain clan, keeper of the old ways, and, now, thanks to you, complete once again. Marcus stood perfectly still, every instinct screaming at him to run from the apex predator before him. But, underneath the fear was something else, a strange sense of rightness, as if this moment had been destined to happen. You're not running, Seraphina observed, lowering her massive head to study him more closely. Most humans flee when they see a dragon's true form for the first time. I'm terrified, Marcus admitted. But, I'm also amazed. You're beautiful. She made a sound that might have been laughter. Beautiful and deadly. Never forget the deadly part, Marcus Chen. Even with my full power restored, even knowing you have dragon blood, you are still mostly human. I could kill you without meaning to, simply by breathing too hard in your direction. Then, why don't I feel like I'm in danger? Because the dragon blood in you recognizes what I am. It knows I'm not your enemy, not unless you give me reason to be. She settled into a position that seemed more comfortable, her great bulk taking up most of the expanded room. But, now comes the real test. Are you ready to discover what you truly are? How do we do that? With dragon fire. Serafina opened her mouth slightly, and Marcus could see the glow of flames building in her throat. I'm going to breathe on you, very gently. If you truly have dragon heritage, the fire will awaken the dormant magic in your blood. If you don't, I'll die. Very quickly and, probably without pain, she confirmed. Are you willing to take that risk? Marcus thought about his old life, delivering packages, struggling to pay bills, watching his dreams fade a little more each year. Then, he thought about his great-grandmother's stories, about the dreams of flying he'd had as a child, about the strange luck that had kept his business alive when logic said it should have failed. Do it, he said. Serafina drew in a deep breath and, then, released it slowly, sending a stream of golden flames toward Marcus. He braced himself for burning pain, for death, for the end of everything. Instead, the fire felt like coming home. The flames wrapped around him like a warm blanket, soaking into his skin without burning it. He felt power flowing through his veins, waking up parts of himself that had been sleeping his entire life. His vision changed, becoming sharper and more detailed. He could see magic now, streams of energy flowing through the air, power radiating from Serafina like heat from a furnace. And, then, he felt his own body beginning to change. It started with his hands. His fingernails grew longer and sharper, taking on a metallic shine. His skin developed a faint pattern of scales along his arms and neck. When he looked at his reflection in the polished floor, he saw that his brown eyes had gained flecks of gold, and his hair had darkened to almost black. Remarkable, Serafina breathed, pulling back her flames. You're a half-blood. I haven't seen one of those in over 50 years. Marcus examined his transformed hands with wonder. What does that mean? It means you're part dragon, but not enough to take full dragon form. You'll keep your human appearance most of the time, but you'll have access to certain dragon abilities. Enhanced strength, improved senses, limited magic, and, most importantly, the ability to travel safely between dimensions. I can do magic? With training, yes. You'll be able to handle magical objects without being harmed by them, see through illusions, and resist mind control spells. You might even learn to breathe fire, though probably nothing like what I can do. Marcus felt energy coursing through his body like electricity. He felt stronger, more alive than he ever had before. This is incredible. It's also dangerous. There are those in both the human and dragon worlds who would kill you simply for existing. Half-bloods are rare and powerful, which makes them valuable and threatening to different groups. What kind of groups? Dragon hunters who see any draconic blood as an abomination to be destroyed. Sorcerers who would capture you to drain your power for their own use. Other dragons who view half-bloods as impure and unworthy of life. And, worst of all, the Consortium. What's the Consortium? A group of humans who have discovered the existence of dragons and other magical beings. They want to control or destroy anything they can't understand. They've been hunting my kind for decades, using technology and stolen magic to level the playing field. Marcus felt some of his excitement fade. So I'm going to spend my life running and hiding? Not if you're smart and well-trained. And that's where I come in. Serafina shifted position again, making herself more comfortable. I'm going to teach you everything you need to survive in both worlds. How to control your new abilities, how to recognize threats, how to defend yourself, and how to complete the missions I'll send you on. Missions? I told you I would train you to be a courier, but on a much larger scale. There are messages that need to be carried between dragon courts in different dimensions. Artifacts that need to be moved safely from one world to another. Sometimes, there are people who need to be rescued or relocated. People? Other half-bloods like yourself. Dragons in hiding who have been discovered. Humans who have learned too much and need protection. The hidden world is larger and more complicated than you can imagine, Marcus. There are entire societies, politics, wars, and alliances that most humans never suspect exist. Marcus was beginning to understand the scope of what he'd gotten himself into. And, you want me to be some kind of messenger between all these different groups? Among other things. You'll also be my eyes and ears in the human world, gathering information about threats to our kind. And, sometimes, when diplomacy fails, you might need to be my weapon. Weapon. Half-bloods make excellent assassins, Marcus. You can move through human society without suspicion, but you have the power to kill beings that normal humans couldn't even touch. She studied his face carefully. Does that trouble you? Marcus considered the question seriously. A week ago, he would have been horrified by the idea of killing anyone. But something had changed in him, some fundamental shift in his understanding of the world and his place in it. If they're trying to hurt innocent people, no. It doesn't trouble me. Good. Moral flexibility is essential in this line of work. Serafina rose to her feet, towering over him once again. But first, you need to complete your transformation and begin your training. Are you ready to leave your old life behind completely? Marcus thought about his small apartment, his struggling business, his ordinary human concerns that seemed so trivial now. What about my delivery company? Sarah will handle the transition. We'll make it appear that you sold the business and moved out of state for a better opportunity. Your old life will be erased cleanly and completely. And my parents? They'll receive regular updates about your new successful career, carefully crafted to prevent them from worrying or asking too many questions. As far as they'll know, you're finally living up to your potential. It was strange how easy it was to let go of everything he'd thought was important. But then, Marcus realized that his old life had never really felt like it belonged to him anyway. He'd been sleepwalking through existence, going through the motions without ever feeling truly alive. Now, with dragon fire still humming through his veins and power flowing through his body, he felt awake for the first time in his life. What happens next? He asked. Next, I teach you to control your new abilities before you accidentally hurt someone. Dragon strength takes getting used to. Serafina moved toward one of the dimensional windows. After that, we'll visit my court in the other realm, where you'll meet others like us. Then, your real education begins. Others like us? Dragons, half-bloods, humans who work with us. You'll need allies, Marcus. The hidden world can be a lonely place for those who don't understand it. As they prepared to step through the dimensional portal, Marcus caught sight of his reflection one more time. The person looking back at him barely resembled the ordinary courier who had walked into this building a few hours ago. His eyes held new fire, his posture radiated confidence he'd never possessed, and there was something in his expression that spoke of hidden power and dangerous potential. Any regrets? Serafina asked, noticing his examination of his reflection. Marcus smiled, showing teeth that were now slightly sharper than they used to be. Only that it took me 28 years to find out who I really was. You weren't ready before. Dragon magic only awakens when the person is prepared to handle it. If you discovered your heritage as a child, it might have driven you mad or killed you. They stepped through the portal together, leaving the ordinary world behind. As the familiar reality of Portland faded away, replaced by landscapes that defied imagination and skies painted in impossible colors, Marcus felt the last connections to his old life dissolve completely. He was no longer Marcus Chen, struggling courier. He was something new, something powerful, something that belonged to a world most people never dreamed existed. The Dragon Queen had given him a choice, and he had chosen transformation over safety, mystery over mundane certainty. Whatever came next, whatever dangers or wonders awaited him in this hidden realm of dragons and magic, Marcus knew he was finally exactly where he belonged. He had walked into the Dragon Queen's throne room as an ordinary human, and walked out as something far more extraordinary. His real life was just beginning.